The NSG Part 1 guidelines, which includes the trigger list, governs the export of items that are especially designed or prepared, or EDP, for nuclear use. These items include nuclear material, nuclear reactors and equipment therefore, non-nuclear material for reactors, plants and equipment for the reprocessing, enrichment, and conversion of nuclear material and for fuel fabrication and heavy water production, and technology, including software associated with each of the above items. These items are known as trigger list items, as their transfer triggers the safeguards in Article 3.2 of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and a requirement for IAEA safeguards in the destination country. They can be found in Annex A of the Part 1 guidelines. There are several conditions of supply identified in the Part 1 guidelines, some of which are dependent on the type of item being transferred. For example, suppliers should transfer trigger list items or related technology to a non-nuclear weapon state only when the receiving state has brought into force a safeguards agreement with the IAEA on all source and special fissionable material in its current and future peaceful activities. Additionally, the Part 1 guidelines require formal government assurances between the exporting and importing governments to assure that the nuclear transfer is for peaceful purposes and will not contribute to the proliferation of nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices. The importing government must also provide assurance that it will not retransfer items, material, or technology to a third government without prior consent from the exporting government. The recipient state must have physical protection measures in place for all nuclear materials and facilities identified by the Part 1 guidelines to prevent unauthorized use and handling, consistent with the relevant IAEA recommendations. In particular, those set out in Information Circular 225, the physical protection of nuclear material. The implementation of physical protection measures in the recipient country is the responsibility of the government of that country. However, supplier and recipient governments should establish an agreement on these measures, and in each use, special arrangements should be made for a clear definition of responsibilities for the transport of trigger list items. Finally, when considering the transfer of sensitive facilities, equipment, and material usable for nuclear or other nuclear explosive devices, Paragraph 6 of the NSG Part 1 guidelines states suppliers should exercise a policy of restraint. These most sensitive nuclear technologies, enrichment and reprocessing, should not be transferred at all unless the transfer meets an additional long list of strict conditions. Paragraphs 6 and 7 of the Part 1 guidelines elaborate further on the specific requirements for sensitive transfers.
The Part 1 guidelines contain two annexes. Annex A, also called the trigger list, lists the specific types of material and equipment to which the conditions of supply apply. The trigger list covers EDP equipment, components, materials, subsystems, and facilities for the processing, use, or production of special fissionable material. Due to the illustrative nature of the trigger list, Annex A also contains definitions and general notes to help supplier governments interpret whether an item is EDP. Annex B, known as the clarification of items on the trigger list, provides illustrative examples of the facilities, items, technology, and materials contained in Annex A. The guiding question for listing items on the trigger list is, do the items meet the especially designed or prepared or EDP criteria for the processing, use, or production of special fissionable material? The EDP term originates from Article 3.2 of the NPT, in which signatories agree to not provide source material, special fissionable material, or equipment or material that is EDP for the processing, use, or production of special fissionable material, unless certain conditions are met. Source material is defined as natural uranium, depleted uranium, thorium, or materials containing these. Special fissionable material is defined as plutonium-239, uranium-233, uranium enriched in the uranium-233 or uranium-235 isotopes, or materials containing these. EDP is a key fundamental non-proliferation concept. Although no formally accepted definition of EDP exists, The exporting government makes a reasoned EDP determination. The criteria is met if the item is especially designed, especially prepared, or especially designed and especially prepared for the processing, use, or production of special fissionable material.